two individuals who never die in a fight to the death. Today we're going to pit the Old Republic Sith Lord of Pain and Hatred, Darth Sion, against the Jedi bounty hunter Durge. And how are we going to do that? We're going to go ahead and compare the abilities and feats of each character from both the Legends and canon lore in a new series, Who Takes the High Ground, where we pit Star Wars characters one-on-one in a fight from both a theoretical and a statistical standard. So I'll be taking you along in my handy-dandy spreadsheet where we're going to go ahead and break down characters with some attributes one by one. Each of those are going to get ranked, and then we're going to go ahead and look at the results together under the high ground results. As we dive into this list versus the Sith who cannot die versus the bounty hunter who is saying, try to kill me, we're going to go ahead and go through some background for those of you who might not be aware of who these characters are within the Legends and canon lore of Star Wars. We're going to go ahead and start off with Darth Sion. So this is the Lord of Pain. He's a Sith Lord. We do have some attributes. He's from the Knights of the Old Republic 2 video game, and he's part of the Old Republic. So many years before that episode 1 Star Wars episode gets started. Very powerful Sith. We're going to go through all of his attributes in just a second. Then on the right side, we're going to have the bounty hunter Durge. Not a Force user. He is an organic alien with some very interesting abilities that we're going to go ahead and break down. He is a lot older than you would anticipate, and he's primarily based in the Clone Wars era, but he also stretches some time and has some activity in the Galactic Empire based on some recent canon coming out of the Star Wars comic books. So we're going to go down each of these attributes, and you'll just see these on the far left, and they're going to be breaking down each one of these characters' abilities, and we're going to go through each of those attributes per character, and that's going to go ahead and lead us to a ranking number that we're going to go ahead and punch in here, and that's going to get transferred over to our high ground results, where we're going to look at that statistical value together to see which one would come out on top. And then at the very end, we'll have a quick conversation about some theories of which character would likely win in a 1v1. So let's start off with some physical attribute basics. These are not going to be ranked just because in this case, and especially in Star Wars, your weight and your height don't really make a huge difference, but this will give you some perspective on like how large these characters are from a physical standpoint in the Star Wars universe. So we'll start with Darth Sion. Weight is unknown, but we can kind of guess he's around 185 to 200 pounds. He's definitely built, has a lot of muscle, but he's a leaner dude if you've ever played the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic video game. And then for Durge over on the right, unknown weight as well. Species is around 320 pounds. The Jedi are typically extremely large organic beings, usually around like 2 meters, 2.5 meters in height, so pretty tall. But Durge is notably larger in the Star Wars canon and legend lore. So we're looking at possibly 400 pounds for Durge. Doesn't include his armor, which is custom made and was a heavy set piece of armor. So, I mean, this dude probably broke into the 1,000-pound area. Base height's interesting. It's kind of the same. So we got around 6'3", 6'3" for Darth Sion. And then we got Durge over here. In canon, he's currently listed at around a standard 6'3". When I say canon, I'm referring to the Dr. Aphra comic books and Bounty Hunters comics. But I'm going to go ahead and expand this to around 9 feet. If you've ever watched the 2003 Star Wars Clone Wars animated series from Cartoon Network, dude was super duper tall. And these Jedi, we've seen it also in Jedi Survivor the game. The armor is kind of constricting and kind of holding together the Jedi species that, you know, is just made up of a bunch of tentacles. He can definitely extend to like 9 feet tall. We've seen it in animated series and expanded lore. So, you know, we could even look at like 7 feet probably as a base height. So era and time period, and I think this is a good one to rank because I think different eras within the Star Wars universe demand a certain amount of ability to simply just stay alive if there's a bunch of wars going on. So we'll go ahead and start with Darth Sion. Part of the old Sith Wars. This is around 4000 BBY, which is before the Battle of Yavin. And the Old Republic is not an ideal time to typically be alive in the Star Wars universe. Everyone's out to kill everyone, and if you are any type of Force user, there's tons of them here. This is really before the rule of two was established by Darth Bane, so you just have Force users running around killing each other. On top of that, you have the Jedi and Mandalorian wars and eras that were going on at the same time. So just being alive in this era is pretty intense. Over here for Durge, dude's really old. He's over 2,000 years old, at least when he is alive during the Clone Wars animated series. Born 2,000 years prior to the Clone Wars, but he lived through it fighting as a bounty hunter, and then eventually was killed by Anakin Skywalker in Legends, and then comes back in the Galactic Galactic Empire. They look to resurrect him in secret Project Durge. Jedi typically live like for thousands of years, and this dude just happened to live through it all, also as a bounty hunter. So both of these are pretty insane wars. I think I have to give the edge in this case to Darth Sion, though, just because of the amount of Force users running around was pretty insane. We're going to go ahead and put a 9 for Darth Sion. We're going to go ahead and put an 8 for Durge. These are pretty intense situations that they were both in. These ratings, just as a note, are going to be 1 out of 10, with 10 being the highest rating that you can get for these ranking pieces here. We got occupation next. Darth Sion's occupation at the top of his resume is Sith Lord, Lord of Pain. He was previously a Sith Marauder during the Great Sith War, and Sith Marauders essentially are Sith assassins. Used cloaking devices, usually trained in the art of stealth, but he definitely could hold his own one-on-one just with sheer power. Durge was the bounty hunter for the CIS Separatist unit. He was enlisted from Count Dooku himself and is a Jedi hunter. He most notably noted in the Clone Wars animated series as part of Legends, fighting Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he's fought a handful of other lightsaber and Force users that we're going to go through in just a second. Occupation already is pretty wild. We're going to go ahead and give Darth Sion. He is a Sith Lord, not a Sith Master. He never really trained any apprentices either, so I can't say that a lot of his knowledge was something that he could pass along. It was just kind of, within his own ability. We'll go ahead and give Darth Sion an 8. Being a Sith Lord is pretty insane, but definitely not one of the best ones. And then we're going to go ahead and give Durge. Being a bounty hunter is pretty insane, and a Jedi hunter on top of that. We're going to go ahead and give him an 8 as well. They definitely got like top of the food chain situations in this case, but I wouldn't say that they're like the S tier within their classes. For unique traits, this is why this battle is going to be very interesting, but we got immortality over here for Darth Sion, so that's already kind of OP. Dude can't die, which is essentially his Force ability. He was killed during the Exar Kun Wars, lived through it, and was held together through just sheer hatred and pain that kept himself alive. It's one of the best ones that you could just have, and that's really the only reason he's going to be on this list, because outside of his immortality ability, Darth Sion doesn't really have any notable abilities that really have him stand out from other Sith Lords. So we're going to go ahead and give him 10, though. That's an insane unique trait across anyone in the Star Wars universe. Proficient regeneration is Durge's secret unique trait. Of all the characters within the Star Wars universe, there's not many that have regeneration abilities that Durge has. Immortality is going to be better than regeneration, just hands down. Durge's species, the Jedi, are essentially made up of like squid-like tentacles, and you can cut off his arm and it might come back, or it'll heal within seconds to minutes. His armor is also integrated within his organic structure, which makes him even harder to kill. We're going to go ahead and give Durge a 9 in this case. Not immortal, but the dude can regenerate faster than you probably can kill him. Knowledge and wisdom. So this one's a little bit interesting. Darth Sion's a Force user. Durge is a bounty hunter with some very interesting training backgrounds. But Darth Sion's a Sith assassin at heart in training, and a Sith Marauder. So a lot of his abilities are going to be in the art of stealth. He has Force abilities, already OP in the Star Wars universe. He has some pretty interesting ones too, because the Old Republic and Legends lore gives some of these Force users just like an immeasurable amount of abilities that we don't really see in the Star Wars films that we'll go through in just a second. He knows how to use a lightsaber. He can duel other lightsaber users. None of his lightsaber forms are very notable, though. We don't really know which lightsaber forms he honed in on, and he definitely didn't master any of those lightsaber forms. I don't think you really would need to, just given the dude can't die. Darth Sion is probably one on the lower list for knowledge and wisdom. I'd probably put him at a 5. Durge, on the other hand, has Mandalorian combat training. He also has over 2,000 years of combat experience. The Jedi typically were very peaceful species until the Mandalorians came and just wiped out their entire planet and race of people, which is he just naturally has a hate for the Mandalorian race. But part of the Legend lore is that Durge is trained by a Mandalorian himself with combat training. A little bit ironic, but interesting. But if you're looking to hunt your enemy, but it's good to kind of understand how they operate, so it'll make sense. We're going to go ahead and put Durge, I'm going to put him at a 7. There's some other, factors. He's not a Force user, and he's not immune to the Force. Durge is not really someone who's going to be an intellectual being. He's just going to be very experienced with the art of killing as a bounty hunter in the art of war. Offensive abilities. All right, so we'll start with Darth Sion. Darth Sion obviously has his lightsaber training. He can duel with other Force users. He's not just swinging it around like maybe like Finn from the Star Wars movies. He has above average inhuman strength. We see it in the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic game. He'll literally just pick up Darth Traya, who was his master, and just like bodies her over onto a wall one-handed. Stronger than the average human. It's hard to gauge how strong, but probably 3 to 5 times the strength of your normal human being is probably a good estimation to start. He has telekinesis abilities, just using the force. Some of those being drain life, force whirlwind, force slow, force rage, force strain. We got a spell check out here, so we got to do this on the fly. We got immunity. And then we also have Force Lightning. But these are some pretty good abilities to have. Not a lot of Sith Lords had this many abilities, and maybe I'd chalk it up to some of Darth Treya's teachings passing along to Darth Sion. He definitely didn't master any of these abilities, but these were notable enough that he would use them in combat and in duels. Definitely a large array of abilities that he had at his disposal. And then we have Durge over here. Inhuman strength, stronger than Darth Sion to start with. Probably over 10 times the amount of a human. We see him pick up speeder bikes in the Clone Wars animated series. Jedi are just known to be strong. We see it also in Jedi Survivor. They're much stronger than humans. Easily twice the strength of Darth Sion, if not more. Multi-weapon masteries. He's skilled in hand-to-hand combat. He uses heavy weaponry that typically would only be used by the strongest clone units or Mandalorian units. We're getting in small arms machine warfare. This isn't going to be like your typical blasters and stuff. He's carrying around blasters and repeaters that typically would be attached to vehicles. He has vehicular training, so the dude can operate almost any vehicle that he's going to come across. Can't say the same for Darth Sion. I'm sure he probably could and could be efficient, but we definitely see Durge in action using them. He's a small arms warfare tactician. This comes part due to the Mandalorian training. He is able to not just operate as an individual, but he can lead and orchestrate small arms warfare tactics in battle. We see him operate and lead like some IG droids. In this case, though, it's a 1v1, so he's not going to have... So we'll kind of like take that with a grain of salt for this battle. He has a jetpack, which is a really good offensive ability. It could be used as a defensive ability too, as a getaway tactic. He's not exactly super quick, and he's going to be in his armor, so that helps him get around a little bit quicker. He has hand-to-hand combat mastery. That comes in handy when you're fighting any Force user, and he is a proficient Jedi hunter. Doesn't have a huge body count for the amount of Jedi that he was able to take down, at least confirmed kills, but he definitely is familiar with fighting Force users and users with lightsabers. So in this case for the ratings, we're going to go ahead and give Darth Sion a 6. It's pretty high up there. I think just standard Sith Lord abilities and the inhuman strength is going to be helpful. We're going to go ahead and look at Durge. We're going to go ahead and give him a 7. Just a little bit more than Darth Sion. He has a lot of abilities at his disposal. I think there's better bounty hunters that were proficient at killing Jedi and Force users specifically than Durge. Even though Durge has all of these abilities at his disposal, part of what he was good at doing is taking out small arms troopers like clones and a lot of targets during the Clone Wars. But a Sith Lord in particular is going to be really tough for any bounty hunter that's not using the Force to take down. Pretty even matchup if you had to pit them against each other 1v1 on offensive capabilities. Looking at defensive abilities, it's pretty short for Darth Sion. He has immortality, and that's all you really need to know. He does feel pain, kind of like a Wolverine situation, so he's going to feel everything. He just happens to be held together and comes back with the Force. He does have lightsaber defense, which will be helpful against Durge, but he doesn't wear armor. We can assume that he's probably not a lightsaber master duelist as well, and he's probably not a master of the Force or any of his abilities, so probably go into that assumption. I'd probably say he's more of an offensive ability and just probably familiar with overpowering any Jedi or users that he was killing during the Great Sith Wars, Exar Kun War, or the war with Revan Sith Empire. Okay, so for Darth Sion, immortality it's going to be hard to beat. I would say Darth Sion would probably be somewhere like a 3 or a 4 if he didn't have immortality, but because he has immortality, we're going to drop him on an 8. I feel like the dude could literally just walk into a battle with no lightsaber and just take all the hits. Defensive abilities for Durge, very ironic being Mandalorian trained, but he doesn't use Beskar armor, and I think part of that is just because of his specific armor set for his organic makeup. He has a cybernetic enhanced heavy armor that was built by scientists and doctors for him specifically to enhance his regeneration capabilities when he would like maybe lose an arm. Theoretically, it seems modular where it could just be picked back up and put back on. The armor is integrated with his organic chemistry, so it really kind of houses a lot of those tentacle-like appendages that Durge has. This armor allows him to maintain a shell and a shape. He has multi-armor defensive enhancements. We see it in the Clone Wars. He has some shields that he's able to pull up, so he can defend against lightsabers. And then his regeneration ability is insane. He can regenerate within seconds to minutes within being attacked. He's probably one of the fastest regenerating characters in the Star Wars universe. So Durge is definitely stronger in the Legends version of Star Wars. We see Obi-Wan Obi-Wan Kenobi just literally stabbing him with a lightsaber, blowing him up from the inside out with the Force, and he still comes back and die. He's literally like goop. But in the recent Jedi Survivor game, when we see another Jedi fighting Cal Kestis, able to be killed just by simply getting his head chopped off. It's kind of interesting. I think we're going to look specifically at Durge, though, just not assume that all Jedi can be killed by just cutting off their head or stabbing their head. We'll go ahead and give Durge a 7 in this case. It doesn't really feel like either of these characters have a ton of defensive abilities themselves in terms of skill and training. It's just a lot of the natural abilities and organic abilities that they have at their disposal to keep them alive. Durge definitely has the upper hand with his training to keep himself alive from a defensive perspective, but Darth Sion, immortality is not much that you really have to do. So now we're going into the portfolio and resume, and this is going to be looking at what these characters were able to accomplish within the Star Wars universe in their given eras, and this can help paint a little bit of a better picture of what it's like, what they're bringing to the table of experience when they duke it out in a battle to the death when neither of them can really die. For Darth Sion, pretty insane amount of battles that he was surviving. Mind you, Darth Sion only lived for around 49 years, which is, it's kind of short with Star Wars timing and how long Force users typically live. But in this case, with all the wars that he went through, pretty insane. He went through more wars than most of the Force users would ever see. He survived and fought during the Exar Kun Sith Empire War. Darth Revan Sith Empire, also wild. Mandalorians were everywhere. Then there's the Great Sith War, which is also pretty insane. If you ever played the Old Republic MMO video game, literally thousands of Sith duking it out. This is before Darth Bane comes into play with the rule of 2. It goes to show a lot when this Sith marauder and assassin was able to survive through everything going on in the Great Sith War. He defeated his master Darth Traya, which as a Sith, that's like the ultimate thing that you're trying to do. He did have the help though of probably a more powerful Sith, his training partner Darth Nihilus. They worked together to defeat her, and Darth Traya is one of the more powerful Sith Lords. They also severed her connection to the Force. He's also a Jedi hunter during the old Sith Wars era, also hunting down the Jedi Exile in the video game, Knights of the Old Republic. Very large portfolio, lots of Jedi under his belt in terms of how many dudes that he was able to knock out and kill. That's a pretty stacked resume. We're going to go over to Durge, and I think it's interesting when we look at the few accounts of what we've seen Durge actually complete. He was a bounty hunter hired by the CIS. That's most of the information and the contracts that we see him take on. We don't have a list of all the Jedi that he was hunting down. If you have to pit him against someone like Cad Bane was probably more efficient at taking down Jedi than Durge was. He fought Obi-Wan Kenobi and General Grievous in Legends. Obi-Wan Kenobi, he fought him during the Clone Wars, during the Clone Wars animated series, one-on-one combat. I mean, Obi-Wan Kenobi already is one of the best swordsmen within the Clone Wars era. He didn't beat Obi-Wan or Grievous, he simply fought them. Take that with what you will, but fought Grievous after he was in a contract dispute with Count Dooku. Asajj Ventress was there too, and both of them couldn't beat General Grievous. Really hard to beat anyone using a lightsaber, even if they can't use the Force like General Grievous. He has been noted to defeat multiple squadrons of clones, definitely has a big portfolio of non-Force users that he's able to hunt down, but he can hold his own against most Force users as we've seen in the Legends series. In this case though, Darth Sion has the much larger portfolio of proven success. He didn't beat the Exile, which was really his whole assignment. The Exile was kind of OP. We're going to go ahead and give Darth Sion an 8. And I think Durge, we're going to go ahead and give him a 6. I'm sure there was a lot of Mandalorians as well that, we're just not going to go through that he was able to hunt down, tons and tons, hundreds and hundreds of clones that he probably knocked out during the Clone War, maybe thousands. Granted, he was alive for 2,000 plus years versus the 49 years. You have opportunities to show off your ability, taking on Obi-Wan and Grievous. You lost both. It's kind of hard to, put him against someone who was able to take down Sith and multiple Jedi. And then we got our most important stat. We got the drip. Obviously, looking back at these images between the two Star Wars characters, if you're not looking good, you're not surviving very long in Star Wars universe. It's just how it is. Darth Sion's drip, pretty simple. Robes, no shirt. Darth Sion's going the minimalistic route, but he's looking insane. We're going to go ahead and give Darth Sion very iconic character. For those of you who know who he is, he's a very unforgettable Sith. Durge over here, this armor initially when you see it, it gives Mandalorian for sure, but it's custom made. You see these wrist rockets over on the side here. One of the coolest characters in all of Star Wars. It'd be really sick to see more Jedi, specifically Durge, and we just want more of the Jedi and specifically Durge. One of the coolest characters though in all of Star Wars. If more people knew about him, everyone would be flocking to him, but I gotta give Durge a 10. He's definitely one of the coolest characters from an illustrative concepting perspective in all of the universe. Before we get into the high ground results and the stats, I'll share my theories. Sharing my theories between these two in the face-off. I think Darth Sion just naturally has the upper hand as a Force user with a lightsaber. That's just a given in the Star Wars universe. He can't physically be killed. That's pretty OP already. We know he's like kind of mid abilities, and he has like a mid knowledge and wisdom capability. Durge, on the other hand, the size, mobility, strength, has a little bit more knowledge, and he has that faster regeneration rate, faster than Darth Sion, but it doesn't really matter because Darth Sion can't really be killed, and he doesn't really get knocked out either. He just comes right back. Durge would probably continue to rip Darth Sion to shreds multiple times before Darth Sion got a chance to kill Durge. But because you can't kill Darth Sion's gonna win. The dude's immortal, and the only way he was able to die is by someone having a conversation with him to make him get all emo and depressed. And Durge isn't gonna do that. Man was a man of very few words, at least from the comics that we've seen in Dr. Aphra. I mean, Darth Sion's gonna probably die again and again and again, but Durge is just probably gonna get worn out. They're both organic beings. Just one of them happens to not be immortal. Thinking unless Durge is able to just shred Darth Sion with like a cheese grater and he just can't come back from that, then it's possible, but we're gonna go into the high ground results. That's wild. Hold up. We got ourselves tied. This is max at 80 points, and we're at 62. We got to check our math out here. One sec. We got 62 over here. That's insane. Well, there you have it. They're both 50-50. I guess you could probably say that the drip is a pretty it's a pretty weighty average over here, but we still got to factor that in. Minus the drip a little bit, that puts Durge on the top. If you were to take out the drip completely, that's going to go ahead and put Darth Sion at the top, 54-52. We're going to go ahead and put it back, though. Personal thoughts, then, I guess, outside of the drip, we got Darth Sion. Just by like 2 points and a hair. Would love to get y'all thoughts on what you think would happen if both of these two duked it out to a fight to the death. You know, a lot of interesting situations because I mean, Anakin Skywalker supposedly killed Durge by throwing the dude into his star. Maybe that could happen with Darth Sion. You know, there's a lot of theories out here. Stats don't lie. I appreciate y'all for staying around. My name is Garrett. Make Star Wars content here. If you appreciate this and you want to see more of the Who Wins the High Ground series, please drop some more suggestions of who you'd like to see pitted against each other, and feel free to share your thoughts on like who you think would win and why they'd win. I do actually have a small poll that I ran on the channel. Go ahead and flash it up on screen of what y'all thought initially between Darth Sion and Durge. Kind of, you know, backs up a few of the stats that we pulled together. And if you got to the end of this video, I'd appreciate if you drop a like. Helps me, helps support the channel. And then I appreciate if you subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. Well, thank you for watching. Remember to stay down to be down. Peace.